Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Triangle Area SQL Server User Group's main meeting. So tonight, we have the pleasure of talking about a little bit of imposter syndrome, and Sam is going to take us through it. So, Sam Hetchler, please take it away.
Oh my goodness, I'm not sure I can necessarily get us all through our imposter syndrome. Uh, Thank you guys for having me today, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome. Um, this, for example, is me working through my own imposter syndrome. Uh, I wanted to get to a more sharing bit of a situation. I've been in the IT career for over 10 years, and about 5 years ago or so, I realized I wanted to get more into uh, collaboration, and you'll hear some stories later as to how and why I got to here where I'm at. Um, Quick bit of background if you haven't scoped me out on LinkedIn. Um, my name is Sam Hetchler. I have a background in database, data architecture, ETL, BI, Excel, general coding in whatever language is necessary at that point in time. I worked at a call center and followed up by worked at an online ticketing group, um, and then followed up by oh, doggies, followed up by working for a utility local to the Colorado area here. Covers 4 states, and you'll hear a fair number of stories from that. That was a great opportunity for me, and now I work for a uh, large resort company called Vail Resorts. They own and operate a fair number of ski and mountain destinations. But oh, and that's where I'm enjoying right now. A lot of opportunity to practice my imposter syndrome and work through it and help others do the same as well. Um, One of the things that I've realized going through uh, career and life here is the idea of survival of the fittest. Okay, so that concept itself is a bit of a misleading. So the idea of fittest we think about as strongest, fastest, biggest, smallest, things like that. But really, what it is it's should be survival of the most adaptable. And in any career, you're gonna find that if you don't adapt, you're not going to thrive as well as uh, others that are able to do so. It's exhausting. It is constantly exhausting. Um, yeah, that's it. It's exhausting. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Um, I entered the tech career a bit by accident, but a bit because I was not wanting to um, not wanting to do what I was doing anymore. So I adapted. I uh, I'll say it at the beginning. Um, if you guys have any questions or anything, just toss it in the chat. It'll get tossed over here, and I'll do my best to address and respond to it, especially if you have any questions about your own situation or anything that I talk about, please, by all means. I worked at a call center, so I was taking 60 calls a day, talking to new people each time, just one after another. And I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I applied for a job in Excel, just moving numbers around, making them look pretty. And then from there, I started linking Excel tables together. And then word got up that I was making these cool Excel sheets that were linking together. And one of the reporting managers said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this thing called SQL?" No, no, but if it keeps me off the phones, yeah, by all means, I'll learn it. So I got hired to support our SQL and BI stack without knowing what SQL was. So imposter syndrome aplenty. It's your job. Learn it. You don't really have a choice. So I went from 0 to knowing how to write SQL in like 2 weeks, at least the basic thing of understanding what I was doing. And so I would classify it that I fell into it. I don't feel like I necessarily seeked it out, especially considering I failed computer programming in college. So I had no interest. Clearly that wasn't the path for me. Now I can probably go back and do it. But going going into that, I wasn't trying to go into uh, tech for myself. I wasn't trying to do it for the sake of saying, hey, I'm awesome, I can do tech. I was doing it to solve a problem for the company that I was working for. Hey, talking about solving problems, get out there. Yeah. And so the idea of solving other people's problems is the one half of the imposter syndrome. And I feel like that is the setup that at least I've needed to keep coming back to, is that idea of what problem am I trying to solve with me being here or me being a part of the situation itself. And so the problem in the situation was that my company needed somebody to manage the BI stack because the person had moved to a different role in the company. So I adapted. And then from there, you should focus on the idea of promoting yourself to stick around. And that's kind of where like the idea of LinkedIn is fantastic, because it's a little bit of promoting. But at least I found the majority of tech people aren't good at marketing. And so I've always felt it feels a little unfair, the idea of uh, having tech people go out and find jobs for themselves, because that's not what we're geared towards. That's not what I'm geared towards. I hate looking for jobs. I'm good at doing a job, not finding a job. I've got more problems than I know what to do with at this point, but they don't pay me. So it's a balance of promoting yourself and finding problems. And when you blend those two together, that's where you can easily find your spot within a company. Um, and going back to the LinkedIn idea, we write down what we've done, that sort of thing. But that's really not what's important. That's not what companies hire you for. They don't say, great, fantastic, you spun up a server. That's fantastic. Now I want you to do it for me. That is where they put their need and your ability to solve the problem together. They assume if you did it once, you can do it again, right? That's your marketing. And so hopefully you're able to stand up that server, build that table, modify that ETL, do the ERD, the diagram of the database. And then you move on to the next problem and the next problem. And you keep working on the problems that are available. And when there's no problems more to be solved, you retire, or the company lets you go, or you retire in place, as it was lovingly called by a former company that I was at. But I want to work for a purpose, even if it's not like my perfect purpose, because it's my time, it's my effort, it's my skill set. I want to keep getting better. So one of the most important things that I've learned when working through other people's problems is the importance of stopping, looking at the situation, and asking the right questions. Got a couple questions that I ask and some stories that go with it here. So again, if you have any questions, drop it in the chat. It'll get carried over, and I'll try and answer as best I can. One of the questions, it becomes an interview. So when I'm working at a company and somebody says, "Hey, I have a problem." Oh, fantastic. Let me finish this up. All right, what's going on? What do you tell me? Okay. What's wrong? What do you think is wrong? And or what needs to be changed? Or specifically, like I have my notes here. What annoys you about this thing or process? What do you want changed? Um, and so if we take a look at business intelligence as an entire answer to that, right? I'm in the database like 7 out of 8 hours of the day. I can see all the information. I can write SQL. That's great. But the majority of the company doesn't. And so they need that BI front end as a service. But there's a whole bunch of other ways that businesses operate. Go tell a business user they can't do something and they'll figure a way around it. And so that's where Excel comes into play. That's where Microsoft Access comes into play. That's where SQL comes into play. Tableau, Power BI, Oracle Analytics, and all of those are solving the problem of I don't know SQL. Okay, you don't need to. You can just know the context of what you're looking for and put it into play. And so that's where you gotta put your own experience aside, right? Your role in that situation is interviewing. They ask you for a reason. You could ask, hey, how do you think I can help this out for you? Like, why me? Oh, because you were there. Okay. And you keep interviewing from there till you figure out what is actually the problem. And then you work on it from there. There was when I got hired on to work at the electric utility, I was one of 3 people that got put in charge of the entire Oracle BI stack. It's fantastic. A lot of work, a lot of learning, because up to that point I hadn't done any Oracle SQL. Concepts are the same. It's all good. And so as I was getting to know where I was, definitely fish out of water, looking at what the lay of the land was. One of the power users, we got a good relationship going, and I started learning their story, and definitely the like what annoys you, what could be improved, those sorts of things like that. I spent a lot of time getting to know their story. And one of the things that came back was that they spent an exorbitant amount of time in the morning pulling the daily reports. And I asked how they were doing it. And they walked me through it. And one of the key things that I realized was that if I were to redo the filtering in the reports, they would be able to go through all their different projects at much faster pace and consolidate their 2 hours down to like 20 minutes. But I offered one step further. I knew that we could schedule reports. So I said, hey, solve that problem of just like, hey, you can go back and you can go through your projects quicker. but I can just have it email you your big ones every morning because schedule reports. You don't need to worry about it. It's in your email. And that was very well received. Um, I didn't know how to do it when I first started off the job there. Again, imposter syndrome of just like, I don't know how to operate this, but I figure there's a way to do it. And so those are the things that are important of answering the question of whose problem am I trying to solve, mine or theirs? I was trying to solve their problem, and it just keeps going from there. After going through and taking care of the things that were bothering them, then we were able to move on to the other things that were further down on their list. But for working against their list of things, it kept going to, hey, what do you spend the most time doing? I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch what you do. And I'm going to go take a week and figure out how to either completely automate it or cut it down. And I I kept going through those things. And by the time I left that role, the tools that I had made were quite indispensable. So that was great. I kept solving their problems. I didn't know what they were, um, but I kept helping them go faster. Force multiplier, I think, would be the larger term on that. So great opportunity to do that, especially in the tech roles that we have. Um, as I mentioned, um, the idea of going out and seeing the people that you're solving their problems for, like going and sitting with them or screen sharing, um, that's that is very, very, very invaluable, especially as we get tickets of just like, hey, these numbers don't match up, and that's all the information that you have to go off of. If you haven't had the opportunity to have that ticket come to you, don't worry, it will happen. Uh, but the quickest way to solve it is to say, hey, where are these from? What are you doing to make it? What are your filters? When are you checking? Is the database refreshing at that point in time? Are you not looking at all the pages? Are you summing things up wrong? We were dealing with a thing earlier today of that Excel was adjusting a CSV wrong, and so it was shifting numbers. Not the first time, not the last time it'll happen. Um, but that was an issue on us, not an issue on them. It would still be a heck of a lot easier if we were to see things from their point of view. Um, one of my roles at the power company, I got tasked as a ninja, as a unicorn, as an all-in-one to get all of the, or to take all of the maintenance data about the physical transformers. So the big metal boxes that actually do the voltage conversion. Um, and no idea. I have no back knowledge of them at all. It was really cool to be able to do that, and I definitely prefaced the idea of like, I know nothing about it. I do data, but I don't do these other things here. And every time we went into the meetings to talk about it, um, it was just me in the corner being like please don't ask me a question about like what is the minimum KV that we have in our infrastructure, or what's the maximum, or things like that. But if you ask me how many we have of different things, boy, I can tell you because that's data related. Um, and so I got to know more about what what is going on with the substations and the stuff about the substations. It's amazing, for the record. There's so much information about it. But one of the things that we were able to do was my boss was like, all right, you're tech, you don't know nothing about the field. Here's a hard hat, here's boots, jacket. Go watch him put in a transformer. And so I got to go on a field trip and watch them bring a mobile transformer and go install it. I actually got to see two transformers. One was a mobile transformer, and one was actually a full-size transformer that they needed to bring a. It feels like an unreasonably large crane, but transformers are a lot heavier than they appear. And one of the things that happened was that they were having issues with um, the breaker system, because you don't just plug it in, you're running at 115 kV, so you can get arcs that are like 6 feet long. And so the breakers actually are like massive switches that fly up. Well, they're physically connected together, but they actually test it when they swing open and close before they connect them. And they were out of sync with each other, so it would have gotten a few extra cycles as the arms were coming up and down, which would be horrendous when you're dealing with magnetic forces inside of the transformers. And so, I mean, in learning all of this, was just like, wow, this is really cool to see you guys troubleshoot this. Like, because then I can see how you guys work. So then I can make sure that how I'm doing my stuff integrates with how you guys solve problems. I can build you the tools to be able to walk through the information in the systems. It was great. I loved it. I had a great time. My boss called me into her office a couple days later, said, "Hey, let's talk." I wasn't. Loved it. Awesome. Feeling less out of place, imposter syndrome me. She's like, "Yeah, so I got some negative feedback on you being there." Well, she said, "Yeah, the people heard that you liked that they had issues." Uh, seriously? Yeah. No, I liked seeing how they troubleshot. And I explained the whole story to her. And she's like, I get it. I get it. I just needed to actually like tell you on the record, hey, let's be careful about how we say. It's good to see that you have problems. Um, so, lesson learned. Pass that on to other people. Keep those comments to yourself. Write down notes silently. But yeah, it was really interesting and to see that. Most people don't get that opportunity. Gosh, yeah, I was I was sad that that's what they took away from it, and so I made sure from that point on, whenever I was working with the people out in the field, to be careful of how I was talking about and addressing the situations that they had. I made it a collaborative effort from there. That whole idea of like being out in the field and seeing what's going on. You either become a bystander or you become a part of this the troubleshooting and the solution itself. Um, was working with one of my coworkers on we're trying to migrate servers. Have I migrated a server before? No, absolutely not. Uh, should I be able to? Um, People have. There's probably a lot of documentation. Definitely imposter syndrome on that one. But hey, you know what? Sure, I'll support it. We'll figure it out. And so that's where the idea of war rooms as a welcoming place comes into play. Uh, you don't need to know how to solve problems beforehand. You just need to have the perseverance to be able to stick through it, to survive it, if you will, to be able to move on to the next one. Um, in the migration of the server, I think if my coworker's on here, he'll correct me tomorrow. I think we broke it out in like 6 phases, maybe 7, maybe 5, something like that. And bam, we were going to have it done. 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, nice and quick. Yeah, so phase 1 took a month and a half. And I don't think we're done with any other phases yet. Maybe one other phase, but nowhere close to what we anticipated. we're all still working through it. And we acknowledge that we're all still working through it. And doing the right thing takes time and a supportive system around you to be able to do that. And that's why toxic workplaces are so tough, is because they don't give you that opportunity. Um, you don't get to be an imposter. They expect you to be perfect from the get-go. And so maybe you're not the right person to solve their problem. But what you can do is you can help them in saying that's not where I'm at. So yeah, be open to that idea that you're not the right person to solve that problem. I wasn't the right person to solve the problem of how to connect a transformer to a live infrastructure grid. No, absolutely not. But I needed to stop putting myself in that situation where I was. My role was to be after they do what they do, I go support what's in the data management system. Yeah, there was continuing with that. One of the main reason I was brought on was because there was this Excel sheet. Remember, BI is not specific to SQL. BI is solving a problem of interfacing a user with their data. And so a contract went out to figure out the health of these transformers. They're big. They take 3 years. They took about a year and a half to 2 years before COVID to be able to spec it and order it and get it delivered. I have no idea how bad it would be now, but you don't just have extras laying around. They are site specific for the voltage and for the megawatts that go through it. And with some of them 70 years old, they want to know, hey, how much life do we have left on it? How do we plan ahead? We can't just replace 450 overnight instantaneously, especially if we're a power company and we don't deliver power, right? That's their problem they're trying to solve. They deliver power. My job is to help them do that through information. So this Excel sheet that they contracted a third party, that was their solution. They took all of the raw data and interviewing from people. I think it was a year and a half long process minimum to get all of that. And they put it in this Excel sheet. And these were industry experts, very, very smart people. They put it in Excel. That's the tool they had available to them. And that's what they could deliver. That was their solving of a problem. Did they have imposter syndrome on the delivery of things? Maybe, probably. But they took care of that. And so we were given this Excel sheet that was, 70 megabytes, and it took an hour to recalculate on the computer every time you told it to refresh. That was after we killed 2 computers, two high-end desktops, and switched over to the most powerful VM we could spin up. It still took 45 minutes to recalculate, but it gave numbers. So I was there to solve the problem of convert but it does numbers to be able to actually reasonably distribute it for the people in the field. Because if it kills the computers at headquarters, it's going to kill the laptops out in the field. And so I spent a year and a half working on solving that problem. How I went into it compared to how we came out of it together. The ideas changed a bit. They did, and that's fine. Your solution doesn't have to be right. Like, your idea going into solving a problem doesn't have to be right. You don't have to be right. They're not saying They're not saying, Sam, you need to solve the problem only knowing what you know right now. They knew they didn't know. They said, Sam, do this for us. This isn't our area of expertise. I'm a project manager. I'm an account manager. And there's 300 people out in the field. None of them could solve it. So they put it on me. And even when I was struggling with how to do it, asking for help around me. Um, and ultimately, it came to learning that I could load the data up in the temporary tables and recalculate on that. Um, and I had never learned about temporary tables up to that point. I was 7 years into my SQL and BI career, and I hadn't heard about temporary tables. Fantastic, took care of it. Yeah, and it made it so that on runtime it only took 1 minute to recalculate. And then when they were like, fantastic, how do we deliver it? I remember you can embed SSRS inside of SharePoint. Everybody has access to SharePoint. I'm gonna go plug it in. Bam, put it right smack center of the maintenance page. Solved that problem. Did they care who did it? No. But ultimately, that's not my problem. I made sure that I was solving the needs of others, and it's nice at work to be able to hide behind that when it comes to imposter syndrome. Of business needs this, I need to do that. And so, just like I talked about at the beginning of this, I wanted to pivot into the idea of like giving more than taking. And I was able to go to some industry conferences, and I started seeing like who were the main collaborators, the speakers, the bloggers, and I went up to them. I made friends with them. It was like, Stephen, I know you're up there, you're talking about it. How fun is it? Oh, lots of fun. I love giving. Oh, sweet. And Jeff, fantastic. You love to talk about REST and Oracle databases. Yeah, love it. How do you blog all the time? Like, how do you keep up with that? They'll answer that question. And so that helps. But I've also found that in approaching those situations, which definitely feels like a vertical, at least to me, feels like a vertical wall that you're approaching and you're looking up and you're trying to figure out how to become one of the people up there. It's important to remember that everybody started where you were, at least on that specific thing itself. And they learned and they got to experience. And even the person that's quiet next to you, they're somewhere on that journey too. Nobody ever started knowing everything. And even the people that create things from scratch, they didn't just create it and know it. What was their journey? You get to ask that, and you get to help yourself and further build a relationship with others. And that I've found to be a fairly successful soft skill of actually taking the time to ask people, again, going back to the problems at work. What's bothering you about this? What are you struggling with here? If anything, you can empathize. You can empathize with them. I'm saying, yeah, dude, that Excel sheet takes an hour. Can you make it go any faster? No, absolutely not. So you move on to how to solve it in a different way that you didn't originally have before. And that goes back to my first point of survival of the adaptable. right? I've seen a fair number of people in my career that haven't adapted, and they've either been worked around or they've been let go because their skill set wasn't what was needed. And I don't want to be. I don't want to be that. I want to keep adapting. I want to keep helping the next people that are around me. And with that give and take, I continue to work on my imposter syndrome, and hopefully they get to work on theirs as well. Because again, they're somewhere down there, or they're somewhere up there, or they're right next to me, and we're all on this journey of figuring out things together. Because you'll never know everything. One of my side things that I've done for a while is I do the streaming for one of the churches around here, which before COVID wasn't really that big of a deal because they had a huge amount of in-person attendance. Haha, come COVID, nobody had any idea that it would impact so much. I had one camera hooked into the computer. I had the sound from the soundboard plugged into the camera, and up to that point, I was just playing around with um, streaming to other parts of the church so that solving my problem of being able to be in the nursery with my kid that couldn't sit for an hour through everything, um, we were able to go be there and yet still participate in what was going on. But we were able to go from in-person attendance to all online in 1 week. It was March 15th, 2020. And come the following week, March 22nd, 2020, we were all online because we were able to adapt. And we didn't get stuck on the idea of we have to have in-person service. My gosh, this is what we're going to do. No, we're all imposter syndrome at this point. And that has continued to expand as it's allowed people to be able to stay at home, whether they're sick, like a fair number of people unfortunately are coming back down with it, or if there's physical limitations because it snows 1.5 feet overnight, Saturday night, right before church on Sunday. And it has kept people safe. But what we started with was definitely a very small setup. I had no idea what I was doing. Even still, there's a lot of like investigation on things. I've spun up a automation system using Home Assistant there um, to automate some of the cameras because those are complicated. I didn't realize how complicated it would be to try and control 3 pan-tilt zoom cameras simultaneously while switching scenes and making sure YouTube was up and things like that. No idea, but I knew I was the most capable of the people there, and so just keep working through it. Um, there's definitely questions of how things happen that make me feel like, oh, am I really the right person for this? We had a we had a meeting last night of just like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? And it's like, go back to the idea of like, ah, we've talked about this before. This is our solution for it. Is it perfect? No. But this is where we're at. If we want something different, we have to go seek something else out. And it's a constantly adjusting situation. Um, ultimately, it's worth it. Um, we were going and double checking some of the numbers, and I mean, it has allowed a lot of people that have even moved across country to be able to attend with their friends. They can talk about the same sermon together. I've streamed a couple uh, of funerals, and these these people have family all over the country, and so they're able to attend. Um, they don't care who it is that does it. And that's, again, what drives me is the focus of helping those who need to be helped. They can't come, so I need to help them do it. And with that constant repetition of working through that, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm dedicated to solving that problem, you will get better at solving that problem, right? Won't you? Uh, Shuffling cards. First time, cards go flying everywhere. Now you can do a bridge. Um, as with writing SQL code. First time, could you write it? No. Now can you write it? Yeah, better. Are you going to be perfect every time? No, absolutely not. You're going to miss a where clause. You're going to have a wrong apostrophe somewhere. Things like that. Um, I'm working on integrating a couple ticket systems at work. I swear every company has this ticket system that the company uses, and then the ticketing system the IT group uses. And so trying to get them to go together, I have failed so many times through all of this on making it work. Total imposter syndrome. New company, lots of nice people, lots of smart people, and I'm working on something that I've not integrated these two before, or really, for that matter, worked in either one of those systems together. But that's my job. So redirect your imposter syndrome over to the problem, right? The problem is to solve that. Okay, so I am going to look up how other people have done it. Fantastic. Let's try that. It's not really working out. Do I know what I'm doing? No, I don't know what I'm doing. Am I good for this job? I don't think I'm good for this job. But I am the one who's going to figure out how to do it. Fail here, move on to the next one. Fail here, move on to the next one. Fail here, and keep going to we're about to roll out with an entirely different integration architecture than we came into it or that anybody else has ever documented. But in the end, what's the problem? The problem was integrating the two together. Does that mean I'm not awesome for doing it? Well, it nothing worthwhile is ever a single person game. There's been a huge support system around me, both hands on and hands off. And I would challenge everybody to, if you're not actively working on the situation, to be a cheerleader, because everybody will appreciate knowing that there's somebody else that's like, hey, I appreciate you working on that. At the substation, I can't fix the mechanical arms. Thank you for working through that. I'm going to go stay over here now so you can do that. Yeah, you, I, I would say that probably the simplest thing in regards to managing imposter syndrome, if you don't quickly dismiss yourself, is going to be that idea of focusing on the problem. Okay, it's not perfect, but an easy way to do it is to change everything that you have imposter syndrome about into a project, right? What are you trying to do? Why do you have imposter syndrome? Oh, I'm trying to get into a new group. Okay, how are you doing that? Oh, I'm showing up. Fantastic. That's a great step. What do they do? Oh, they do SQL. Well, do you know SQL? No, I don't know SQL. Are you going to go learn there? Yeah, fantastic. So it becomes a project. I want to become a SQL person. Cool. At the industry conference, I want to give now that I feel like I've learned something. I haven't learned everything, and looking around, even the experts, even for that matter, the people that wrote the systems, don't know everything, because there's way too much to learn at this point, which is great. There will always be things to learn. There will always be things to feel awkward about. So don't get too overwhelmed at the idea that you don't know everything, because nobody knows everything. Do you know everything about optimizing databases? No. Figure it out. Go find somebody else or cheer somebody on. Keep keep focusing on that. It I've tried it. It's not perfect, but the idea of writing down a little like project charter for each thing you're trying to work through, that's not like go take out the trash, but like some bigger things in personal or work life can easily be broken down into that idea of problem statement and how am I going to approach this, and like those SMART goals of just like, okay, what are my deliverables? And then being able to look back and say, that's fantastic. I got it. Um, and then you move on to the next thing. But the important thing is being able to look back and tell your past, or being able to tell your future self, I did that. That was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. I will be fine at the next thing because I was able to do that again. Um, if you're a parent, you might have the lovely opportunity of teaching your kids things. They teach me things too, because I've never been a parent before my two kids. So the learning goes both ways. But I gotta remind them that like they didn't always know how to use a spoon. They didn't always know how to put on their shoes. They weren't able to always do something, yet they've learned it to the point where it becomes second nature to them. They can do it again. They can do the next thing. They have to have faith in that idea of being able to push through. And it's uncomfortable. Um, it really is. One of the things that through my asset management at the power company was I took a long, very long course on change management. Yeah, it's fuzzy. Um, I'll figure out how to post a reference to this, but it's the idea of ADKAR, awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And so, with the focus on like doing change inside of businesses and organizations, but the idea still remains for people ourselves. The problem is that we let ourselves get stuck in that ability and reinforcement stage of it. Like we typically get stuck in that awareness and that desire. I want to do something, but I just don't know how to do it, or I don't have the ability to do it. Um, and then that reinforcement afterwards of saying, "Fantastic, you did." The phrase "do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life." That's hopelessly optimistic, and I've heard so many people say that idea. But I'd like to put a little caveat to that of do what you love as long as it solves another person's problem, and you'll never work a day in your life. Um, as nothing comes for free. You solve other people's problems, and they solve yours. That that's the goods component of money, or sorry, the services part of money. Money is in exchange for goods and services. You're solving problems. Um, so it becomes tough in a workplace to be able to fight that imposter syndrome of when somebody says, "Hey, what are you doing here? Why should we keep you?" Well, then it becomes an attack on you specifically, and that's not fair because you're there to solve a problem, right? So the easy way to remind them and yourself is to say, I'm working on this. But if it's not relevant to them, they're going to give pushback and say, I don't care. You're right. You don't, but your boss does. Aha. Okay. You're solving their problem of their boss giving them grief by solving their boss's problem. And so you can keep asking yourself, what am I trying to do? Why do I care? Right? You could sit at home and do nothing. No imposter syndrome there. That's super easy. We've all had plenty of opportunity over the past couple of years to do that. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to reach out here. Me doing a presentation. I'm trying to reach out and get to know new people. How do I do that? I just do it. I reach out and say, hey, I want to give some soft skills. I have code. I can share code with you guys. I actually did that for the St. Louis uh, SQL group last year. Happy to do it again. But this one, I wanted it to be a little more relatable to people, and especially the idea of like starting off in your career. It's daunting. It's scary. I started off when SQL was like what, 35 years old. I still think it's 35 years old. It didn't change. I didn't change. But I've worked and I've practiced and I failed a lot. And I'm more than happy to share those things of cross joining some really large tables. Oops. Forgetting a where clause. Whoops. Uh, yeah, going and reprovisioning all the agents before the day, uh, so that they don't have their passwords to be able to get on the phones. Bad idea. Done it. Came across something about a month ago on social media that said the difference between juniors and seniors is that seniors break things more creatively. And well, we typically love to share all the different ways that we've screwed up because those are like our war wounds. We don't get to like show scars of like, oh, that's the time I unplugged fraud. This is the time I forgot a where statement. Um, but we all have them, right? Luckily in IT, people don't usually get hurt when we screw up. There's a lot of learning that comes with it. So whenever you are in a situation when you're either working with, well, you're working with someone, you will always be working with someone somehow. Take that imposter syndrome because that's about you, right? That is you. You are feeling like you're not in the right place, but it's not about you. You're focused. You should be focused more on the problem to be solved. And if you can reinforce with that person that has the problem, hey, I'm going to figure it out. Well, how are you going to do it? Well, this is my plan. Well, what if that doesn't work? Then I'll go from there. And honestly, if they don't like that idea, I don't know what to tell you. Like they're either terrible at their specs or you don't want to work for them anyway. I did when I was between jobs, I actually did an interview at one place where it was like, oh, this could be fun. There's a lot of problems to be solved here. It was a really small startup. And I was like, but you guys don't know what you want me to do enough for me to feel confident in what you're doing. And that was important for me to make that distinction because I wasn't willing to meet their expectations of being able to solve all of their problems. It's okay. I've, especially during COVID, switching from being very, very business oriented to being home every day, I've needed to learn new things, even still needing to learn new things about how to raise a child. They don't act the same as code. Uh, they really don't. And I am an imposter in my own home, trying to figure these things out. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I have no idea and ask for help. ask my wife, hey, how do you manage this? After she's done laughing, you'll get an answer. Or this is a phrase that has been very successful for me through life, through my career, has been, how would you approach this situation? I'm struggling, or I'm about to approach this situation here. How would you approach it? What questions would you ask? What should I look for? Um, and even if you get like 5 minutes from somebody who you seek their ideas, their expertise, their knowledge of either the situation or the potential solution, right? Somebody that might know something more that is useful. How should I approach this situation? Are they going to be right? No, there's no guarantees of anything. So the more you take it as, I have one more tool in my toolbox to be able to work on this, the the better I can be if I don't find the right hammer. I'll go grab a different hammer to hit it. And then I'll realize it's a screwdriver. Or a screw. I should actually use a screwdriver on it. Would a hammer work? Yeah, with enough force it would. But you should really take a look at what problem is trying to be solved. Um, Sometimes you only need a staple gun to hold things in place. I know we're approaching about the 1 hour mark here. I haven't seen any chats or any questions coming over. But if anybody has any questions of what I've talked about or any potential situations to talk about, I would be more than happy to have that. Um, so yeah, the biggest thing about imposter syndrome is you got to keep reminding yourself that everybody has had it, whether or not they say it. There's always something that they're going to feel like was tough to get through, well, get into. Um, and people like to talk about what they've done or their ideas on how to solve a problem, and especially in our IT career path, there's a lot of problem solving, and so the idea of, hey, I'm what my coworker today, he sent me a block of SQL code, and he's like, hey, this is doing this. I don't get it, but it's wrong. All right, so have a look at it. Here and here and here, it's doing things. Oh, okay. But we should tell the person that owns that code to fix it. And that does two things. Now that we've walked through it, my coworker understands better. And now he knows how to work through those couple things that were going on. Also, the syntax of a SQL statement, understanding a where clause hits before the select statement. Cool, fantastic, no judgment. We all move on. But then by offering that code back to the actual code owner, it means, hey, thank you for the code here. I spent time in working through it, and I can make it better for you and for everybody else that uses that block of code. And that's the collaborative environment that is super helpful, is that no judgment kind of place. Because again, I didn't learn about scent tables till like 3, 4 years ago. They can be amazing in things. They can also be horrendous in things. I just didn't need to know it until then. So yeah, I guess I would say imposter syndrome, everybody has it. And in situations, if you're working with somebody on something, make sure to either be part of solving the problem or to be cheering on the person that is solving the problem. Uh, yeah, if you're not one of those two, then I would recommend just kind of, you're not in the right place for what you're doing at that point in time. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's just what I've seen and where I'm at. So thank you for letting me present to you guys. You guys are welcome to find me on LinkedIn, email, or not. That's fine. If you have any questions about the other code bases, I'm more than happy to share some of the tools that I can. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Looking for questions in chat. If there are any questions, go ahead and get them in now. But it didn't look like any questions related to imposter syndrome or the topic at hand. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to speak to us tonight. Some interesting stories about around this. I was thinking, you know what? I would watch people install transformers. That sounds actually pretty
It
interesting.
was so cool. It was so cool. It was just like, that's a massive crane. What are we doing with that? Picking up that little box, and then we need 12 people to move it an inch while it's hanging from the crane. Like completely new thing. It, the pictures and video are just incredible. And yeah, no, it's a blast. I'm happy to share those.
Yeah. So it looks like no questions so far in chat. So I guess with that, we are gonna call it an evening. Thank you again so much for presenting for us tonight. I want to let everyone know next Tuesday we have the topic of topic modeling for our data science and business intelligence subgroup. So come on back for that. And until we do see each other again, everyone, take care.